So we're going to begin tonight, the sermon, with a quick game. I'll say a quote, and you tell me whether it was said by Yoda, the fictional but beloved Star Wars character who is a Jedi Master, or by a Jewish sage, an ancient rabbi whose teachings were passed down. Are you ready? Yoda might have been Jewish, but he wasn't a Jewish sage. So we're going Yoda versus Jewish sages. Good question. Good question. Okay, ready? First one. Preferable the risk of a wrong decision is to the terror of indecision. Jewish sage. In a dark place we find ourselves, and a little more knowledge lights our way. Yoda. Accept the truth you must, from whatever source it comes. We're not sure? Jewish sage. This last quote, instructing Jews to discover and accept knowledge regardless of its source, began a massive discussion on the CCAR Facebook page this week. For those who don't know, the CCAR, or Central Conference of American Rabbis, is the union to which all Reform rabbis belong. It's very common in today's world for Reform rabbis from across the country and the world to utilize this Facebook group as a way to share ideas, ask for guidance, find sermon support, and debate important issues. The extensive discussion prompted by this particular quote, though, was one that many of us found so important that we've decided to preach about it tonight. What was that initial question posed? What's Jewish about Star Wars? I have to tell you, there were so many answers. I didn't post, but I loved reading everyone's posts. Some rabbis wrote about the Hebrew origins and connections to names of major characters and what it represented. Others spoke about how the concept of the Force connects very clearly with different Jewish theological understandings of God. For those who are interested, particularly those of Mordechai Kaplan, and a great deal of Hasidic thought. One rabbi even compared the Jedi philosophy with Jewish teachings on self-control. The list goes on and on. My favorite, though, was the discussion of Jewish understandings of the overarching battle between good and evil in the films, with an understanding that both Judaism and the Star Wars franchise seem to agree that in the end, the battle between good and evil is played out within each of us. Our challenge is to resist the temptations of the dark side and with the help of God, become a master of self. Rabbi P.J. Schwartz discusses this beautifully when he wrote this week, Jewish mysticism, specifically that of Lurianic Kabbalah, asserts that we live in a world fractured by fear, anger, hatred, and carelessness. Emotions that drive us to not follow the mitzvot, or commandments. The mystics charge us to reassert our energy to that of honesty, compassion, love, and intent, empowering us to follow the mitzvot and become closer to God, whose divine sparks can be found throughout the living world. This tension between our evil inclination, known as our Yetzer Hara, and our good inclination, known as our Yetzer Tov, is the reason we are unable to fully appreciate and connect with God. Star Wars addresses similar tensions. In the Star Wars universe, the light side of the Force serves as the key to overcoming the dominating dark side. As Jews, Star Wars heightens our awareness of a world fraught by the Yetzer Hara and allows us to better understand the power of the Yetzer HaTov to overcome it. Interestingly, though, Kabbalistic scholar Gershom Scholem, many, many years ago, wrote that there were groups of mystics that believed the only way to overcome the evil inclination within is to embrace it. Indeed, Darth Vader, the great villain of the Star Wars series, chose the dark side, believing that in doing so, he could bring order to the chaotic galaxy. Darth Vader's attempt, I'm sorry to spoil it for anyone if you don't know, it didn't work out well. It might not have turned out as he planned. But we have the power in our lives to embrace or reject both positive and negative thoughts and emotions. Judaism has a great deal to say about the battle between good and evil. The rabbinic tradition shares this story, that our sages once caught the Yetzer Hara, this evil inclination, and bound it up with gold chains. At first, they were very pleased with themselves. Thievery stopped, murder ceased, people were suddenly friendly and loving toward one another, there was no jealousy, and in all the land no arguments occurred, and moreover, no one died. Then slowly, our sages came to a strange realization. People were so satisfied and content that they did not bother to toil. There was no competition, so people quit striving. No new houses were built. People no longer married or wanted to have children. No babies were born. Even the sages themselves became lazy and put off their study. In this way, our sages learned how important the evil urge is to the world. They broke the gold chains and set free the Yetzer Hara, this evil inclination. The sages learned that if we did not have a Yetzer Hara, these negative impulses within ourselves, a little of the inclination to compare ourselves to others, even, for example, we may not have the productive urge necessary to accomplish real goals. However, while the Yetzer Hara can sometimes contribute to our greatness, it can also get us in trouble. Although we may not like to admit it, there is a little bit of a Yetzer Hara in each of us. And what it motivates us to do is not always clearly bad or good. As one rabbinic colleague put it, it is often assumed that our choices are stark between virtue and vice, between qualities that align with good and those that carry the taint of evil. For the sages and for us, the qualities of good self and bad self are not so black and white. They're quite gray. What matters then is the balance between the Yetzer Tov and Yetzer Hara. I believe the same message can be found within the Star Wars films. Even in a galaxy far, far away, good and evil are connected. Both exist as part of us simultaneously. The way we balance these competing forces is what determines the life we will lead. So tonight, I pray that we'll be open to seeing both the good and bad in ourselves. May we find a way to harness both and to utilize them both in ways that make us happy, kind, and productive members of society. May we continue to strive to be the best versions of ourselves, and of course, may the Force be with us. Shabbat Shalom.